have Nigerians from all parts of the country will enter this weekend agitated and confused over the currency redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. While banks remain open to receive old notes till Tuesday, January 31st, scarcity of the new Naira note and rejection of the old notes beginning from today by retailers and many sales outlets is driving the centenary into panic mode as the deadline stared. A few days before the deadline, the exercise had led to chaos as well as overstretching bank workers due to the breakdown of counting machine in many of the branches. Findings by The Guardian shows that the breakdown of the counting machine due to heavy pressure has resulted in bank tellers now counting monies in bulk manually, making many customers wait long hours on the queue before being attended to. The Guardian gathered that not only are bank workers overstretched, the health implication of counting multitude notes manually remain a concern. The national president of the National Union of Bank, Insurance and Financial Institute Employees, Anthony, who said the situation had not brought to the union's attention, called for compensation for the categories of staff, especially the bulk tellers and the notes counting officers at the end of the exercise. And we have a lot of chaos left, right, and center, Rachel. And before we started the show, we are actually discussing about stamps are threatening to sue the CBN governor because he has refused to appear before the House. And also, we can see that lots of customers, retailers, I was actually a victim of that today. I tried making a transaction and then the retailer refused to collect the money that she's sorry she can't, she only wants the new Naira note. And it's alarming because not everybody is having the new Naira note, and you can see the queue still. In fact, there was a bank this morning that is still locked because if speaking to some of the people over there said that the bank said that they're running short of this new Naira note. And so this is really alarming, and I don't know what we are going to do. Today is 27th and we have barely few days. I don't know if some banks are planning on opening tomorrow, Saturday, even though I know of a bank that will be opening on Sunday to actually help churches to actually, deposit the offerings because there are possibilities that people will be bringing in the old notes because not everybody is having it. But right now, my concern is what is the way forward? 31st is Tuesday, and they are already left, right, and center that 30th will be the deadline because most banks are hoping to close up so that they can reboot their system so it will format it in a way that only the new Naira note. So right now, I'm really, really worried. I don't know what is the way forward. We had callers are calling in that some bankers are actually swapping money, even though we do not have, facts. But then I believe the CBN already have the details of all the banks and how much they have issued. So when there's a shortage, you'll be able to trace what really is the problem and what is the way forward. So right now, I do not know, even though the CBN governor said it's ideal that we should have 100 days. But I do not think it's up to 100 days as it is presently from the day the new Naira note was being launched and then to the day I think it was in December where the new Naira note was in circulation, and then I don't know if it's up to 90 days or 100 days, and as it is right now, maybe that is why the House is actually calling for an extension. So right now, Rachel, I don't know what we are hoping to do, even though from the papers we can see that maybe there are ways, but then still these notes are still scarce. So I don't know what we're going to do as it is right now.
Of course, we know that one of the number one way, the top way and the best way forward to this situation is definitely an extension in the deadline. That's for sure. Because in as much as we know that there was a launching of this Naira note, we had it on the paper. There are records that the CBN said these notes will be in circulation starting on the 5th of December. And until then, nobody saw those notes. Even after that, up till January, some people were not even seeing these notes. So if we're going to count the days, it's not even up to 60 days since this note started circulating based on what was on the paper and based on the directive of the CBN. 5th of December, that was when the notes started circulating and we didn't even see them. And when you count it, it's not up to 100 days. It's not even up to 90 days. It is a very short period of time, and The only way forward, the number one way forward to solving this problem is an extension in the deadline. That's the number one way. The second way is that the banks should have worked overtime in the period of throughout this January. We need weekends and all of that. And it will be a good thing if banks will open up tomorrow and Sunday to help you and I, to help everybody that needs to swap their old Naira notes. And then it's all about us helping one another. Like, it is very wrong that we have people, the deadline is 31st. And some people since yesterday have stopped collecting old notes. What are you trying to do? I don't even understand the idea behind that, or why is that so. It's very wrong, because if we are going to follow what the government have said, the directives we have from the CBN and the government, because we know that the presidency is backing the CBN governor on this, is till the 31st of January, meaning you have since yesterday, today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, and even Tuesday. But then in a way, we are already making each other's life difficult, because I won't have new notes and come to make purchase with old notes. So it means that there are no notes available for me. That's why I have to use the money available for me. But when you put yourself in a position like the situation you found yourself this morning, you're just making life difficult for you, the person, and the person selling and the person buying, because this is your business. You need to sell. And as a consumer, it is a need that is important for you. So either way, we are both losing. Whether you collect the old note or no, we are both losing, because you need to sell to make your profit for that day and earn a living for that day. If you don't sell, you might be going unsatisfied. At the other end, I as a seller also am going unsatisfied. So we have to help each other out in a lot of way. And I can't say how, but we need to help. We don't have to make each other's life difficult when we still have some few days to the deadline, and you're already 5 days to the deadline, making people's life difficult that they have to bring this and that for you. And if the CBN governor is telling us banks are having this money, then I think we are in a position. I keep saying it, that there needs for transparency in Nigeria and accountability for growth. We need to know what is the supply, because are we now going to blame the CBN or these banks that are not dispensing and are saying they don't have it, while on the other side the CBN are saying these banks should have it and the banks are saying they don't have it? So where do we stand? So for this, I think we need some transparency, because as a CBN, you can't put us in this position because this policy came from you. You can't put us in this position, and for some reason, we don't even know where the problem is in terms of supply. So there are many solutions to this problem. One, for sure, the number one is moving the deadline, and I hope that the CBN does something about it, because it is a way forward regardless of you standing your ground concerning the deadline.
Just like I said yesterday, Richard, I believe the CBN is actually concerned because of the election that is coming up next month. But just like you said, we should have done things much more better. And I believe that possibly maybe the reason why we are having retailers, Kekena Pep and Bourses refusing is because they are looking at the stress attached to going to the bank, because if you look at the queues, Rachel, you and I will also be very, very scared to, join that queue. But then regardless, just like you have said, I just hope that the CBN will look inwardly. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. We do not know what it is between the House and the CBN, but regardless of what it is, we know they were not happy from the very onset, because they believe that the CBN bypassed them by going straight and doing things without taking, because we know the lawmakers have their rule, whether we like it or not. They pass the bill before anything, but there was no bill of that form. Everything just went straight forward. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed on more of that. And on the picture story there, we can see on the Guardian newspaper is still on the fuel scarcity, where people are really struggling, and then it's really so much on people right now with the new Naira not being in circulation and fuel is scarce. So it's really a lot right now. Other stories on the Guardian newspaper: ICPC uncovers fresh evidence, re-arrests ex-JAM registrar Ojiri Day, and you can find that on page 3. I didn't criticize Buhari over fuel scarcity. Naira redesign only offered advice. Tinubu clarifies. So you can read more of that clarification on page 7. And the African Development Bank, IFEX, signed new pact to support 40 million African farmers, increasing financing. Student march against tuition fee hike and loan bill in Gombe. You can read more on page 42. That's why we have Ogini. After 7 years, resident lament slow pace of cleanup. As the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari winds down in 4 months, some Nigerians to whom the government made promises are getting disillusioned as it appears their hopes will be dashed. One group that is counting as each day flies by is the Ogini people of Rivers State, who have been promised cleanup of their polluted environment. A visit to the flag of site for the exercise at Patrick Waterside Bodu last week showed the environment had deteriorated further. Ironically, the plank unveiled by the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who represented Buhari on the 2nd of June 2016 ceremony, and thereafter proceed to heavily being handled by the polluted Shell Development Petroleum Company. The project contractor, however, has left the site following misunderstanding. Rachel, looking at the fact that you've promised the people, you can see the picture story here as a result of the pollutants that are living by these waterline areas. They cannot farm, they cannot fish. Things are becoming very air. Also, it's being polluted. So I believe that the government owe the people of this community an explanation, and something should be done better. If you have promised them, they are still counting, and I believe that the government can still do something before May 29. So we look forward to hearing stories that the promises being promised to them is actually accomplished. The last story on the Guardian newspaper, youth protests as Buhari commission projects in Katsina State. That you can find on page 42. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Friday leadership newspaper, the big story, Atiku Tinubu returned to the trenches over alleged plot to scuttle election. The writer says, stop getting high on your own smoke, Asiwaju tells ex-VP and PDP. Count me out of your problem with PMB, Atiku replies. PDP asks DSS to grill Asiwaju on revolution and riots call. You can read all of that on page 4. Military keeps mum on Niger Nasarawa air strikes. You can read that story on page 10. Leadership award will spur us to do more, coming from El Rufai. Northern group alleges plot to sabotage conduct of free elections. Masterminds of jailbreaks sent to their maker. Federal government faults Atiku over Jakarta Steel comment. You can read that on page 16. And still on Naira redesign, traders, businesses rejecting old notes. You can read that on page 24. And that's all the news on the leadership.
On the Punch newspaper, Katsina youth protests hardship without judgment death. And on the draft, we have ICPC re-arrest former JAM registrar. That you can find on page 36. And still on the issue of Adeleke versus Oyetola, tribunal rules today, police warn troublemakers. So we keep our fingers crossed because this case has been going on between the former governor and the present governor. So we just keep our fingers crossed on what the tribunal will rule out today, in whose favor it will be. And the big story here, mega churches, schools bar old Naira notes payment and offering. New note shortage forces bank to short ATM, customers demand extension. Reps threaten Emefiele with arrest in CBN governor. All of that can be found on page 21. The picture story here, traders bemoan losses as fire got Lagos market, and we can see them trying to, whatever they will be able to save, they're trying to save. We hope something will be done and then we'll trace the cause of the fire. Petrol scarcity, protesters block Lagos-Benin Expressway. And then we are having my wife battle for survival as hospital refused treatment coming from the slay lawyer's husband. You can see that still after her burial, they're still back and forth. So we keep our fingers crossed on what is happening. And the last story on the Punch newspaper, power tariff. That's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, leave us out of your problem with Buhari, Atiku's team tells Tinubu. How further put end to fail new Naira notes crisis now, Jerry Ghana tells others. And the big story on Nigerian Tribune is on Naira notes. National Assembly leaders to meet Buhari, reps threaten Emefiele with arrest sought out. 5 days to end of currency exchange, business outfits begin rejections of old lens, threatens to deal with troublemakers. Alleged 5 billion Nigerians renounce citizenship, a passport demand coming from the federal government still. And on some picture story, if you want to know what they're all about, get the Nigerian Tribune. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On New Telegraph newspaper, Ajeku CBN boosts financial inclusion drive with new payment card that and coming from its headquarters, and we have other rider fully pushed to their makers coming from Solar. You can read that on page 2. And police redeploys making rounds on other papers. New banknote reps deadline. Nigerians in Dadima. Fulham orders emergency microfinance bank branches in Borno and 25 local government areas. And we have Apex Bank vows to address the new note scarcity. So you can focus Benin Road commuters grown. And we have as the NLCDC moves against the PMS thieves, arrest 7 in Jos, and I hope that we hear more of this arrest in other parts. Even though since last year we've been hearing arrests, reps have told DSS to arrest, marketers have refused to bring down the prices. But then right now the problem is because if you should ask any Nigerian, it's not even the price anymore. The fuel is not even
available.
there.
Yeah.
So you begin to wonder what really is the problem. We have one problem on this side, another problem on the other side. Money is not in circulation because it's very scarce. We are having banks and we're having businesses refusing the old notes, and then we're having fuel is very scarce. Yet we're looking at electricity tariff because to pay high, there is no even light. That is even the problem, Rachel. If there was light and then you are asked to pay high, a very high amount for it, you have no problem because you actually can see where your money is going to. So I just hope that we really address all of this. If there needs to be an emergency meeting for us to address this, even though we can see Apex Bank is planning to address the reason why we are having scarcity of this new currency, but that we should really need to go to the root cause of this fuel, because we can see that there's a protest on Lagos Benin Road. It's a matter of time before it will link to. So imagine those that will have to travel through that road because of the protest might be affected. So I really don't know what the government presently is doing about that, but I really want to keep my fingers crossed, and I hope that we don't just leave this as another story on our papers or we hear arrests, even though I'm happy to hear that there was about 7 arrests in Jos, but we want to hear more arrests, you know.
A little bit because a writer called draw my attention to the fact that there are people, fraudsters, with fake currencies. And I'd just like to encourage any Nigerians now, because nobody wants to be stuck with old notes, because it will be a loss if, for example, you have 5,000 naira and are in old notes and you're not able to exchange it. You know that that's 5,000 naira gone, and you're probably in a position where you can't afford to lose down. Money has been stolen at POS using. I'm sure that you're getting these new notes from let's say an original note. Looks like,
I think I was about to say that, you know, Richard, like you took that word right out of my mouth. I was about to say that because if we are having issues of fake new naira note, then there should be a way that you will be able to identify the fake from the original one, because right now, especially POS agents, very few will be able to tell, especially when it's coming in bulk. Actually maybe the first 5 or first 10 might actually be the real notes, and then the remaining are fake. So we just hope that when all of this is being done, or while they address it, we should also address from the real note. But regardless, I just keep my fingers crossed. Apex Bank should do something about it, so we have it enough, so people won't fall victims to you know, fraudsters in the result of I want the new note, I want the new note, and then you end up with a fake one. Coming from Buhari, insists all now local image. This is coming from the CGN. And Buhari's government investment in raft wall without parallel. This is coming from Sage. You can read that on page 3 and 4. And presidential campaign and committed to power devolution restructuring. And we also have a study that you can find on page 7. So do well, get the New Telegraph and read more detail of the story found inside.
On the Matrix newspaper, federal government reveals number of Nigerians that renounced their citizenship in the last 16 years. Tinubu says PDP sabotaging fuel supply to blackmail federal government. Arsenal reaping rewards of patience with Arteta. This is coming from Guardiola. Discuss unable to utilize 1,000 70.36 megawatts in 1 week, says Emefilade's National Assembly shuns reps' invitation. The writer says Emefiele lied about Senegal trip, disrespected National Assembly. This is coming from the reps. Bajabiamila talks tough, vows to issue arrest warrant for CBN governor. Economy is bleeding, a dark horse behind the agenda, coming from the reps. Another gubernatorial candidate, Buhari commissions multi-billion naira projects in Katsina. Gunmen kidnap Chiwe traditional ruler in Kaduna State. Atiku welcomes U.S. visa ban on Nigerians, undermining democracy. President Muhammad government, January 26, 2023. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
All right, thank you, Richard, for that quick review on that paper. Right at this moment, we'd like to take a break so we can open the phone lines and you can call us and let us hear what your views are concerning the arrests that have been issued by reps and also the fact that we're still having fuel scarcity and also the tuition hike for students in Gombe State. These are many other stories that were on the paper. So when we come back from the break, we'll take your phone calls and that's it. Thank you so much. We'll come back right after the break. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still, but when you call us to turn down the volume of your TV set or move totally away. So as well, drop your comment on Facebook and YouTube. CBN plans all card transaction through AfriGo domestic card launch. That can be found on page 7. Nigerians elite are selfish, says Buhari. Jobs created in 2 years, that is in the digital space. And immigration processes 9.3 million passports in 7 years. You know, Richard, this story is in relation to the other that we see, the Japa syndrome and all of that. And we can see more passports are being printed. So I hope we'll do something that even when we live in the shores of Nigeria, it will not be because I'm tired of what is happening, but it's because I'm of more knowledge to come back and develop my country. So I just look forward to seeing, even though we saw some have renounced their citizens, that is even more, you know, sad to, you know, first exactly. Paper. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. If you're interested in that story, you can read more of that on page 6. Still on the Nation newspaper, Nigerians to buy shares with short quotes. You can find that on page 28. House threatened Emefiele with arrest over the Naira note scarcity. And we have why polls must count by Obasanjo and Wike. That you can find inside the paper. Anxiety in Oshun, APC petrol crisis, PDP with saboteurs road. And we have the picture story here where we can see the APC presidential candidate with his running mate and other stakeholders. Servant risks being declared ghost workers. You can read more of that story on page 29, and that's all.
Nigerians of adequate security. You can read that on page 6. The big story, kidnapping political vote Iwo axis as flashpoints. Keep a column that says happenings, fuel hike, civil servants, private car owners opt for public transport in Oshun. Anxiety as tribunal delivers judgment today.
We have Onyeka from Benue. Good morning.
See you again this morning. You're not looking bad at all.
Good morning.
I want to comment on the situations now, especially what the masses are passing through in the country. Now we are debating where to follow now. The two to join now is fuel queue or PVC queue or Naira redesign queue. So actually it has come to stay. We don't know where we are. But secondly, the situation of Nigeria and nature of this country. If House are asking the CBN governor to extend the date to 31st December 2020, but it's too early, why won't all stick to the date? So I think this is the best. Actually, the politicians are now complaining, especially the ones that say that it's their turn. That if not then, It won't be any other person that he knows the way. It is now affecting him because the money cannot be shared anymore. But Javier Miller that is asking to arrest the Syrian governor. By grace of God, he is the one, the APC presidential candidate, announced in Delta State that he is coming to be the governor of Niger Delta State, which is impossible because Nigeria doesn't have Niger Delta State. So they are working together. I am pleading, I am urging the government, especially if it's only what Buhari can do for us before going out. The debt should not shift. We masses have been suffering. We can only suffer it for some minutes, some hours, or a few days, and we cope with it. Let the date stand at the first on Tuesday next week. And we should announce to our people, our neighbors, if you have old money, just go to the bank, deposit it. If you don't have ATM, collect ATM. Withdraw. If you need money, go to POS and withdraw. You must not have the cash in bank in your hand. You get your ATM. You can use your ATM if you don't know how to do mobile banking. So please, I am urging the whole Nigeria to go out and deposit their old currency so that we can be able to take our country back from the hands that hold it captive for a long time ago. This is our time to take it back. I urge all youth to encourage themselves and continue managing the way we have been doing till the day 26 February. God in heaven will intervene for us to take Nigeria back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Onyeka, for really adding up to the voice that Nigerians need to go out and actually deposit their own note. But I just hope that the banking halls will be open for Nigerians to do that. That is my heart desire because we know it's Friday. There's this rush hour, people trying as much as possible.
Yeah.
In fact, as early as 7 or before 7, some people are already in the banks queuing up so they'll be able to have access to either swap their own note or all that. So I just hope that banking halls will be open. Now we hope they extend it even to tomorrow so that more people will be able to do that which is expected of them. Please, let's go on with the newspaper.
All right, another downside of the paper, which is the last story on the Ocean Defender deadline. Traders, residents of remote areas lament as new Naira notes remain scarce. You can read that on page 6, and that's all the news on Ocean Defender.
On Daily Sun newspaper, 309 Nigerians renounced citizenship in 2022, coming from the federal government, says max exodus threatening high passport demand. You can read more of that story on page 27. No attempt to create conflict between Tinubu, Buhari will succeed, coming from the APC. And on the big story, which is the big story, which is on elections, military warned troublemakers, vow to deal decisively with those plotting to scrutin the polls, pledges neutrality. And we have on the Sun Award, Osoba is chairman as R&B coroner. Chike dreams audience tomorrow, and we can see a picture of those that will be receiving the award. The likes of Chike, Choma, and other people will be receiving the award. Okay, hello Jeremiah, good morning. Hello,
Good morning, how are
Jeremiah.
you?
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
I can hear you. Please turn down the volume of your
Morning, how are
TV
you?
set. Good morning. Hello, Mr. Jeremiah. Please turn down the volume of
Okay.
your TV set, okay? Okay, maybe I will end our call so that you can call us back. Thank you so much. Still on the Daily
Oh,
Sun newspaper, no leader can create new Nigeria overnight, coming from Obasanjo. That you can find on page 7. Cashless policy gains traction as CBN unveils domestic card payment. Businesses, customers reject old notes. Buhari urges Nigerians to reject politicians who would drag the nation back to corruption. And the last story, which is on the downside of the paper, protesters block Lagos-Benin Road over fuel price hike and scarcity. That you can find on page 8. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On Financial Times newspaper, debt ceiling row just adds to Fed's problems. Franklin Templeton tries to reinvent itself, and you can read that story on page 31. Harder line, deadly Israeli raids tears strife. And the big story, Rolls-Royce new chief sees group as burning platform that depletes value. The writer says stark appraisal of threats to survival, way paved for next revamp, white-collar job cuts loom. Government wasted nearly £15 billion on COVID PPE, says spending watchdog. And we have a column that says peak sale exclusive deals up to 50%. That's in Bermuda. And that's all the news on Financial Times.
All right, staying on the world of business, let's take a look at the Business Day newspaper. Nigerians' first-time voters under spotlight as elections near. That you can find on the front page and also page 30. Big story, DJs battle streaming platform for hits. And we have explainer that said 7 bridges built with tax credit bonds under Buhari. 7 bridges built with tax credits bonds under Buhari. You can read that on page 2. Concern mount over federal government 2.3 billion naira aircraft assembling project. And we have another story that said new naira scarcity put POS operators out of business. You can read more of that story on page 7. And we have a picture story where we can see the Labour Party candidate and also his running mate during his campaign in Gombe State. And you can read more of the stories inside the Business Day newspaper.
And in the world of sports, on Sporting Sun newspaper, Marcel, nice president at EU welcomes Danjuma to Premier League, and you can read that on page 6. Saudi Golden Boot race, Ronaldo, no threat to me, coming from Igalo. Frankfurt to seal move for Onuachu today. CR7 gifted eye-popping £630,000 wristwatch. War at PSG over Mbappe's captaincy role. Aston Villa comes to Alba's rescue, and you can read that on page 5. And then we have terminated ahead of April's bout. Joshua's comeback opponent talks tough. And we have injured Victor Moses returns after 6 months. Martinez on Sporting Sun.
Alright, let's take a look at the TBS for Friday, where we have manufacturers feel the pinch as consumers tighten their belt. And we have other stories here. State banks spend 80% of their forex for government imports in the first half. And then we have another story here where we can see access to finance land still difficult for businesses, which is a report. You can see the business climate index for 2022 to 2023 for those who are interested in what is happening over there. And we have FBCCI seek the Prime Minister's directive on not increasing gas price over 57%. Hello, Mr. Steve. Good morning.
Good morning. How are
Turn down
you?
the volume of your TV set. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. How is everybody there?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Steven.
Continue to if they did not remove police from notorious PECOM. Because that PECOM, you will suffer in the police, you will retire, you will be suffering. They will not pay you your full gratuity. They will just give you peanuts. How would person have that mind to be fighting criminality and insecurity? Because to that self, it means they will delay before they pay your gratuity to your family. So the federal government should think that thing very wisely and remove police from PECOM and recruit more policemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen, for that call. Please, to our callers, remember to turn down the volume of your TV set because I find it very difficult to hear you here in the studio because of the echo over there. And, you know, this is something Mr. Stephen has been raising for quite a number of time, the issue of pension to our retired policemen, because it's important that we take a look at that. I remember during the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, we heard where the widows of the Army were coming out to say that most of them, they are yet to receive pensions of their late husbands and, you know, thereabouts. So I just hope, because this is an issue that especially Mr. Stephen from Benue, he has been emphasizing on that from last year to date, the fact that policemen are not well taken care of. And of course, if you want to encourage not just the police, but even the armed forces and every other person. It's for us to take care of them. Their welfare should be of top priority to the government. So I hope something will be done about that, that we take care of our retired, security agencies, so that they'll be willing and glad to give us some, consultative, let's consult them for some advice on what to do about that. And that's all on the TBS newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, Charles Chibuke exclusive. And you can read all of that on the front page and continue inside page 8 of Punch Sport Extra. Igalo ready for Ronaldo challenge. And we have Habet set for Stamford Bridge exit. Special one at 60, Mourinho still number 1, says Snuda. Ghana's citizens battle for semi-final spot. And from Juventus face 50 million euros fine. Villa keen on Oba, and then we have Uzoho rated Nigeria's best keeper. Injured EDD set to return, and then we have Kane Hill's Rashford mentality, and then we have resemblance to Osimhen big motivation, and then we have Alves in Barcelona's sell with Coutinho. Chelsea emerges Arsenal top transfer target. You can read that on page 3, and that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. It's really interesting hearing you review all of the sport news, being a sport lover that you are. So we just hope for those who are interested by grabbing the paper. Thank you for doing this with me. Thank you to our callers, and thank you. Remember to go deposit your old Naira notes. Have a blessed weekend.